We're going to talk about clothes, but more specifically, we're going to talk about how donating clothes can help us on our gender transition journeys. So when I started my transition, some things in my life pre-transition stayed, but there are many things that simply had to go. One of those things that I just had to purge was my old wardrobe, and I didn't realize at the time how good it could feel to get rid of it all. I always thought that I hated shopping for clothes, but once I started my transition, I realized I didn't hate shopping for clothes. I hated shopping for men's clothes. Shopping for clothes that weren't for me. As I've talked about in previous videos, those first time shopping were terrifying, but finally having clothes that felt like they're truly mine felt amazing. There was definitely that constant fight between feeling affirmed and wearing the right clothes and experiencing dysphoria because my body had not changed enough at the start of my transition for things to really fit the way I wanted them to fit. But there was nothing but pure dysphoria whenever I wore guy clothes at this early stage in my transition. Once I started embracing Chloe, wearing guy clothes, nothing but dysphoria from that point on. Before I started transitioning though, guy clothes were boring, they're drab, they're unflattering, they're uncomfortable. My sense of style was awful, to say the least, because trying to figure out guy styles meant I would have to spend more time sifting through a bunch of bullshit outfits that I already hated. I probably didn't realize all this at the time, but that's kind of what I'm thinking might have been going on somewhere deep in the subconsciousness of my mind. But once I was into my transition and started embracing my identity as a woman, it was not as easy to repress the discomfort of presenting as a guy at that point. The whole gender dysphoria often gets worse before it gets better thing that I talked about a few weeks back. Although I wasn't actively thinking about purging my wardrobe, I knew that it would feel good to get rid of it all at some point during my transition. When it came to clothes, my focus was on building up my new wardrobe. The purge would come later. First I needed to stock up, and then I could pare it down to the things that I no longer needed. I had to, come out full-time first and get to the point where I no longer needed guy clothes before getting rid of all the ugly old t-shirts, jeans, polos, button-down shirts, ties, and more. I'll never ever fucking miss wearing a tie. I think they can look great on other people, but I fucking despise the feeling of wearing a tie. Who can relate? But once I had been out full-time for a few weeks, maybe a month, I knew it was time. It was like lifting off such a huge emotional load. Packing up all those old clothes to donate or toss, never having to see or wear them again. I didn't realize how good it would feel until I was in the moment, until I started taking all of it out of the closet, stuffing it into bags, putting it into piles. It was like yet another sign that things were really falling into place in my life. It's like, wow, here's a very stark visual of a transition happening in my life. For a long time, I did not want these clothes, but I was now at a point where I no longer needed them. The fact that I no longer needed these clothes reminded me that this was my life now. My life is Chloe. This is my life now. Transitioning genders involves leaving behind things that no longer serve us, that we no longer need, and then embracing the things we do need. Embracing what makes us, rather than forcing ourselves into a life that others told was made for us, that we were told by others that we should like. My old wardrobe served its purpose. It allowed me to blend into a world that wasn't made for me. It was a survival mechanism. It kept me safe, but it kept me miserable. Once I was ready to live rather than simply survive, I was ready to move on from the tools of guy mode. Sometimes I really want that safety. Sometimes I do want to blend in, but I don't ever want to go back to completely compromising my authenticity for any of that. It may sound cheesy, but donating my old wardrobe was extremely cathartic and healing in many ways. And it's not something I realized would happen, like I said, until I was actually in the process of doing it. And then when I came home, after donating all of this and realized I never had to look at that old wardrobe again, oh my god, did that feel so fucking great. Now, I'll admit, I kept two things that I can think of. I had a comfy college hoodie from UF, and a sriracha t-shirt. Those still bring me comfort, but it took a while to be okay with wearing those things again. And honestly, I think the only reason I kept that t-shirt is because I misplaced it and I didn't find it until after I'd purged everything else, and I didn't feel like making another run just to donate one shirt. So it just kind of stayed and I still have it today. But I got rid of everything else, and I have to say letting go of the past can be very healing. And that's exactly what this was for me. So I'm gonna keep this video quite brief, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and reactions. What was your experience like of building up a new wardrobe? How about getting rid of your old wardrobe if you've done that or started doing that? Did you keep any of it? And if so, why? If you haven't purged your old wardrobe yet, do you plan to do that at some point in the future? And how might you do that? Let me know all of this and so much more down in the comments below. And as always, Tipsy and I love you all and hope you're staying safe and sound. If you have not done so already, please be sure to give this a huge thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. I love you all. Bye for now.